good. Let me start. Let me start with the People Daily. I beg your pardon. Sorry for that. Let me start with the People Daily here. On the front page of the People Daily, that is what it is on the People Daily. Alarm of a high number of exam flops. This is what it looks like. Number of exam flops and examination. This is tough journey ahead of concern as we take a look at the 690,000 students who failed to score university entry points of C+ and above. That is what it have. And the number of students who actually scored E, 40,000. And my colleague Vivian is not amused. She's not amused. So, front page of the daily, of the People Daily, alarm over high number of exam flops. Exam flops. That is what's on the front page of the People Daily. That's what you have there. All right. So the examination results were released yesterday for the first time in Gishu County, and the president received the report. And the number of students who actually, the female, we have here on the front page of the People Daily, you'll have an overall grade summary for the 2023 examination. That is what it's here. And still here, Maseno School tops Nyanza, old luminaries. This is what it is today. And also pictures of the students who performed better or performed well in the last year's KCSE. Thousands stare at bleak future over low grade. CS Machogu was particularly concerned over the high number of grade E obtained in last year's examination, which was, they said had the gender parity, 50%, 49%, plus or minus, give it there. There you have it. So students improve in maths, Kiswahili, music, and chemistry. As far as the report is concerned, the male candidates, however, recorded better mean score performance than female candidates in 10 subjects. Male candidates, however, recorded better mean score performance than female candidates in 10 subjects. These were mathematics. Let's go. These were mathematics, Kiswahili, biology for the blind. That is biology for the blind, CRE, business studies, German, music, chemistry, building construction, French, and electricity. That is according to the report. Overall, according to Machogu, I am impressed by the quality of grades that are coming out of sub-county schools that produce 283 candidates with mean grades of A and A- in the 2023 KCSE. Junior schools suffer 42,117 tutor shortage. That is what it is. There is a staffing shortage of 42,117 junior schools owing to the transition of the students second class of this level this year. The Teachers Service Commission has said, the secretary, that is Nancy Macharia, yesterday said that the number of teachers required this year in junior secondary is 99,045 against the current number of 56,928. That is as far as that's concerned. All right, moving quickly. Top performers walk with heads and shoulders high in celebration. It's always a familiar picture every year after the examinations. Results are released across the country. I wonder where we never show. I think this is part of the media that we only show the good side of it. I don't know why. I think we also need to start showing the face of gloomy students who have not made it. All right? So that is it. This is what we have. Okay. So that's as far as concerned. So, okay, we'll talk about that. Mixed reactions as Murad endorses Raila for 2027 polls. Again, politics. Interesting. Mixed reactions as Murade endorses Raila for 2027 polls. Jubilee Vice Chair says that ODM leader should make a fifth try at the presidency while others disagree. Okay. So that is what we have on the front page of the People Daily. All right. we take a look at the front page of the People Daily with my guest in studio now. Gentlemen, good morning. Eric Wadudi Muturi, good morning.
Good morning.
And salam and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Also to the viewers. You remember last time we had Christmas here?
Yes.
Now we are back in the new year. Even as we take our children back to school, it's even as we have the exams being announced, we are also taking more children to school this morning, starting from yesterday.
Yes.
I believe this is a good year. All indications are that we've started on a positive outlook, and I'm sure we'll be discussing more of this as we get into the show.
Very right. Very right. Oscar, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How have you been?
Fine, thanks. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy New Year too.
Happy New Year. Where did you spend your holiday?
I was somewhere in Kajiado with family. I didn't manage to travel to the village this year round.
We should tell the elders.
Yeah.
You denied them their rights over Christmas holiday.
Their rights. But Eric, sometimes...
You see why elders were calling us? Something was amiss in the village. But nevertheless, I hope you had a good one.
No, we had a good one.
All right, great. So we were taking a look at what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Alarm of a high number of students scoring examination. This is what we have. Alarm of a high number of exam flops. Johnny, there's a tough one ahead. Concern over 690,000 students failed to score varsity entry points of C+ and above. Oscar, you are a teacher. Yes. Let me just start with you and get your voice on this.
Yeah, this is a high number of exam flops. I think the entire process, the entire exam system has not reached the expected bar. I teach, and I don't know if 50% of my students fail to pass. 50% of my students fail to pass. That means that the communication, the link, the communication between the teacher, between the tutor, or between the instructor and the learner, there was something wrong with it. For instance, when I went to school and when you went to school, you know, we never used to get E's in exams. I also don't give E's because when I mark a paper and find that a student is getting an E,
yes,
I must question, did he attend? Was there a problem in the system? Because if you get an E, that means that you might have not attended all the classes. And according to, for example, the university rules, you are to examine a student who has not attended at least third percent of the lessons. They're not supposed to be examined. They should be examined after the next time the exams is being offered. But now for 50% to flop, like whatever happened here, the lowest mark when I did my Form 4, the lowest mark was a D- or a D plane. That was below bar. But 40,000 or 50, almost 50,000 is, there must be something in terms of how...
Actually, the correct figure is 48,174.
48,174 is. And remember, Victor, when you went to school, E was not a mark that people used to get. People used to get D-. And again, even in the other tertiary levels, they admit, the tertiary levels that admit, for example, if you go to Village Polytechnic, they will admit a D-, and they will admit a D plane. But they don't admit an E. An E is something that should be investigated. We need to know what really happened, because for you to get an E, you remember, even when you mark a paper and the fact that a student has written just a name, you need to give them 01. You need to give them a mark. Actually, that is what we call an E. That means these 50,000 students either never attended the classes or never attempted.
Or just wrote their names.
Or just wrote their names.
Centers.
Get me right?
Yes.
And for a student just to write his name, there must be a problem that happened in the process. It cannot just go like that. So E is not a mark that I personally, as a lecturer, I don't give it. Because I have to question, was this student part and parcel of us? Can we go back to class registration where people register when they come to class every day and check if he actually attended? because E is only somebody who has wrote their names. But if they attempted the questions, like for example, a mathematic paper, you know, if you give you 12 marks, the marks just give you because of writing the formula.
Yes.
Just get 0 because there are 8 marks. If you write the formula, you get a 1 mark. If you get the answer, you know, for attempting, you get some. But now for you to get an E, that means that it was just below par.
Yeah.
So this one needs to be really investigated, because even people who get E's, actually they're discouraged, because you know what sometimes education does? Education raises people's expectation. Right? You're far much lower than somebody who left at class 8.
Yes.
Because their expectations were not raised, and they have their skills, and they're able to continue doing what they're doing with it, be it joining the Juakali sector, be it going for at the village polytechnic to study plumbing, to study some of the technical courses. You know. But if you bring this person to Form 4, then you award them an E. That person's life is shattered. Because education is the key to success, they say. You get me right?
But
so with an
E, is it, if it's education is, I mean, key to success, then for the 48,000, so does it mean that they're not successful in life? I mean,
when you bring them to Form 4 and give them an E, you actually shatter their lives. It is better if, I don't know if to blame it on the 100% transition. Because if you bring them and waste their 4 years, then give them an E after 4 years, you should have left them or diverted and let them do some other things, which will have made their lives more meaningful after class 8.
Let's take a break. Did you score anything, an E in anything?
I never. I don't even give that mark. It never exists in our
Did you score any E anywhere?
Not that I can recall.
Not even in Sunday school. Okay, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Oscar and Eric with me in studio. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So let's take a look at the front headlines, what you have on the papers. It's all about the examination. And Eric, now is your time. We are taking a look at what we have here on the front page of the People Daily, and this is it. Alarm over high number of exam flops. That is 693 students failing to get this one. But the most important one is the number of students scoring an E, 48,174. But I mean, look at it, plus or minus, the gender parity at this particular point, as per the data, is 50-50. But let me start with the front page. What do you make of this front page?
Thank you, Victor. You know, the reality is that it's our education system is very cutthroat. And sometimes when a student is unable to score a grade that gives them a lot of stature in the society, you know, most of the times people know that you have a candidate in school, whether in class 8 or in Form 4. And most of the times they will be waiting to hear how much your child got. And therefore sometimes parents whose children score an E tend to feel ostracized, and they tend to feel like their children did not make them proud. But you know also, Victor, we must remember that our education system has come from far. If you recall, there was a time in this country when there was a lot of rampant, you know, theft of examinations, which to some extent was curbed when we had an education secretary, cabinet secretary called Fred Matiang'i. And you remember he received a lot of accolades as a result of being able to stem the issue. But then there was still an issue where, you know, if you did not score an A, you remember during Kibaki's time there was also proliferation of universities. Everyone wanted to go to universities. And you realize that this government is also adapting a system where they want to encourage more people to go towards TVET institutions. My desire would be that we, and it's a good thing we are moving into the CBC system, because I believe that sometimes when your child scores an A, even the child themselves, they tend to feel demoralized.
With an A?
No, with an E.
Okay.
With an E. You know, it depends on pronunciation. You know, when when you get an E in the village, sometimes you want
Oscar
to pronounce it as if it's an A.
Oscar, you have a duty. Take us to class. A-A-E. Okay.
You know, sometimes you want to pronounce it sound like an A.
You're right.
But I think there is need to dig deeper into the reasons why we have such number of A's. I know there is what Oscar might know they call a normal curve. You know, we must dig deeper and find that is it warranted to have 48,000, because those are 48,000 Kenyans, and those are Kenyans that we are going to meet in the job market. We need to understand what conspired or what transpired for these students to be able to get an E. I think we need to investigate the system more, because you remember since we announced also KCP, there have been certain anomalies. Even now there has been speculation that there are certain anomalies with the examination.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a wider problem as revolves how the government is handling exams, but there is also room to dig deeper and find out why exactly are 48,000 students getting an E? What exactly happened? Because this is a child that went through the education system from class 1 to form 4. You know, those are 12 years of study. So 12 years of study to culminate in the lowest grade possible, because the student who got 0 and the student who got 10, they are all ranked in the same category of E. So we need to dig deep and find out, is it a fault with our education system? Is it a fault with our students? What exactly transpired for someone to get through the education system, sit in an exam room, and actually get out with an E?
Yeah. Remember, this is the last cohort of KCSE, 844 generally, and we are getting the new system. Do you think it would have been, okay, devil's advocate, more deliberate to have very few students joining the university?
I think yes and no. And I say yes and no because, you know, government's policy has now tended towards having more students in TVET institutions.
Very good.
There has been a concerted effort to reduce the number of students that go to university, which in my opinion is a bit fair, because, you know, during Kibaki's time, we converted every room. You know, you used to find that.
But is there a better way? Is there a better way of sending those students to TVET institutions?
No, I'm not saying giving them an E is a better way of sending them to a TVET institution. I am just saying, that's why I started by saying we need to look into why, the reasons as to why 48,000 candidates can actually have 12 years of education and get out with an E.
Yes.
But having said that, I know there is a deliberate government policy to ensure that we have as many students as possible in TVET institutions, so that we move into a skill-based economy.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear government saying we want to export labor to certain countries, there are certain skills that we need to export to different countries. And also, even as Kenyans, there are skills that we also require in terms of services that we need to have going on. So yes, there is deliberate effort by government to take students to TVET. It's true this is the last KCSE we are going to have now moving forward. But I believe there is need, and there is an absolute need to conduct an investigation as to why our own children, 48,000 of them, went into an exam room and got out with the lowest grade.
Exactly. When you look at the number of colleges, and not colleges per se, but the schools, you know, way back in the days, it was certain schools, you know, which were, if you don't find that school in top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that was not a KCSE. This time around, we've been seeing coming from a school in Nyanza, another one headed somewhere in Nairobi, another one headed somewhere in Central. There is no consistency in terms of particular school X will maintain that position every particular year. Okay, let me just say, Alliance was there, Star Air Boys was there, Mango High School, etc., etc. But right now, there is that change. Does it mean there is that aspect of competition, or schools are more getting their hands firm grip on education, that you don't have to go to a particular school to make it in life? I mean, look at it.
You see, There have been problems with the exams, and we have exams cheating that have been going on. Apart from that, amongst these schools, there were schools that were upgraded from provincial schools that we had a long time ago.
Yes.
For example, Asumbi girls, Nia girls from where I come from, they were upgraded to national schools. So they're at the national levels. So what they receive, the capitation also that they receive, is about money. There's the link between whatever money a school receives and the results it gives. Secondly, there's something we call students' entry behavior. The entry behavior of students. For example, county schools, they only admit people who are above 250. Extra county schools admit people who are above, I think, 300. And then extra county is 370, 350, I think so. Then national schools, they can only admit people who are above 370. So you see, people who are 400 marks, they are selected to go to these particular schools. So when it is done across board, and these are national schools that were there, the long time ago when we had these specifics, Mangu, Lenana, Alliance, they were the only schools who had the entry behavior, who could admit people who were 400 and above.
Right.
But when it was dispersed, that many schools were upgraded, so they got a chance to admit to have an entry behavior of 400 and above. So if you get 400, you will be called to Asumbi. If you get 400, you will be called to Karuga. In Embu, you get 400, you will be called to Alliance. So the entry behavior is the same. And again, the money that they charge in those schools are the same. Now, another thing before we get into this bit that you are now discussing, about this data that I wanted to discuss a bit. We had 48,000 E's.
Yes.
Right? But again, you should know that we had 3,860 students who registered but didn't appear.
And the ministry said they need to investigate that.
You see, it's like, remember when we had when the number of spoilt votes was going more than the vote that was cast. Remember in elections, right? So if we have 3,806 students who registered for exams and didn't appear, so we should also question, where are these people? And what is happening? So for the Minister of Education on management of KCP and management of KCSE, I think I give the ministry.
So now what happens to these 3,000 students who did not sit for exam? Look at it this way. The last cohort of KCSE was done and dusted by yesterday.
Yes.
It's a done deal. So what happens to them?
You see, this is I don't know, a mirage. I don't know what we will do, because we should investigate. Currently, with the system that we have, I will tell you one thing, Victor. If you take a bus, or if you're flying, you will say, passenger Victor so-and-so, please get into the plane will be leaving in the next 20 years. You get me right? If there are people who are, long time ago, when you don't appear, the area chief will come for you and tell you that we've been given information that so-and-so, you are a student in this school, you're supposed to do exams, you're not appearing in that class. But if we have a number of almost 4,000, not appearing but registering to do that exam, this is a big number. Yes, this is a big number. So management of KCSE and management of KCPE was bad, and I'm not sure about the KCSE. I don't know if this one is the last. I know KCP, that was the last. Yes, I don't know about KCSE. But moving forward, if this thing that we've managed for many years, you know, number of years we've managed KCPE and KCE, we should have known how to manage it even much better. You get me right?
All right.
But now the new one, the CBC that we are managing, then might end up being more chaotic as opposed to what we've managed for many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what you have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Very well, thank you guys. Kabarak tops KCSE. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. That is Kabarak tops KCSE. Moi High School Kabarak walks away these years bragging rights in a list dominated by public, national and extra county schools, according to results compiled by, of course, Daily Nation. Kenya High had the best mean score by a girls' school, as some academic giants were shoved aside by newcomers, something that we talked about. I mean, the grading, the students' entry behavior.
Yes,
exactly, the students' entry behavior. And parents, students, and schools caught off guard as ministry dumps SMS service to NEC online portal. It was chaotic in last year's examination result for the KCPE. This time around, it was online.
You know, I've seen some memes. One of the telecom companies,
yes,
they are very shocked that money has just disappeared from them. But you know, it was a bit of a mess when during KCPE,
yes,
because it was bringing errors. And even this time, the website, I think this time they were accessing it from, it crashed.
Yeah.
Then I mean, someone very close to me checked in the morning, and later in the afternoon, there was a bit of discrepancy. I think Oscar has said something very important. I don't know why, as a country, we seem to be in a hurry, sometimes to do things that might bring a bit of embarrassment to us. I think there is need for us to sit back and say, look, whether we announce this today or we announce this tomorrow, it is better we announce tomorrow with the requisite and the above board, rather than announce 2 days prior, and then we have to keep on course correcting as we move along.
Yeah.
You see, I don't sometimes understand why we have technical challenges, and yet we have telcos that coordinate our data on a day-to-day level for the entire country every day of the week for a full year. And yet for the most important days of any student's life, when we are really banking on you to deliver for us, I mean, the system fails. I don't know whether it is that we don't plan ahead in terms of the technical aspect that we have. So I think there are a lot of things in the education system. We need to sit back now and do a post-mortem analysis and say, because CBC system is coming, how do we manage examinations and results moving forward? Because this is the 21st century. You know, there are things in this country that as a Kenyan you might never understand. One is how technology always seems to fail us during elections. So we have, prior to elections, we have to haggle between manual and electric, which one we will do. And then when it comes to examination, also results, we still have technical problems in terms of technology. Those 2 areas as a country, I don't know whether it is sabotage or whatever it is, but I think those are 2 areas that we need to figure out exactly what transpires and exactly what happens with a view to improve how we handle such issues.
But again, over this technological failure, Brother Eric, does it fail? You know, there's a question.
You know, that's what I'm asking. Is it? Because I don't get it how.
Like elections, when the system collapses, or when the system collapsed over KCP and KCSE results are releasing, to me, in my analysis, I don't think it fails.
Yeah,
I think it is sabotage. And again, when a CS and a new government comes into place, and people are dishing out tenders, I think for the first time, the KCPE were not printed in London. Normally, they are printed by a printer who is based out of the country. This time, it was printed somewhere around Mombasa Road, they say. You get me right? And managing this thing for the first time could have been a problem. But I don't think if something, for example, USSD, because we use USSD every time. If I want to check on, you know, it's the easiest thing that you use in any
If it
phone.
doesn't work, then we go back to the old manual way. The district education officers were being sent to Nairobi Examination House, Mitiani House, pick the batches and distribute in your local schools.
But now, Victor, you're becoming another chairman of IBC who say, can the ROs in all constituencies walk into Bomas and bring, you know, Victor, we can do these things virtually. Now even meetings are done virtually.
Yes.
You get me right? We don't have to go to Mandera to do a meeting there. We can do it online and can do it using technology.
Okay.
You know?
We must find the saboteurs and deal with them ruthlessly.
Yes. Top schools nationally. And this is what we talked about. Number 1 is Kabarak High School, mean of 10. Number 2 is Mudas Academy in Vihiga, Kapsabet Boys High School, Light Academy, Kenya High School, Chemelil Sugar Academy, Kisima Mix Secondary School, Kiage Tumaini Boys High School, Maranda High School, St. Bridget's Girls, Kiminini, Leluak Boys. This is as far as Moi Girls, Moi High School in Kabarak walks away with these years bragging rights. And that's on the front page of the Daily Nation. Standard says that Kabarak leads in number of A's, Alliance second. Again, Kabarak, Standard, the Daily Nation. And we have it. This year's KCSE results were different in many aspects. Final grade was arrived at using new grading system. Learners improved in maths and number of underage went up by more than 4,000. So does it mean that the new grading system is now brought what we're talking about here? The number of grading system, okay, perhaps for the benefit of the viewers, this one, the statistics as illustrated on the People Daily, the number of E's, D's, D minuses, and C++, the number of A's, female and male. This time around, the the figure is almost at par, percentage. The gender parity. The government said that at some point, this time around it was okay, 50-49. So the grading system, could it be the result why we are getting this number?
I completely don't think so, because if the grading system is the new grading system, what they're saying, they have many subjects, but they choose the best.
Yes.
Yes. When they choose the best for you, still, you are at an advantage position.
Okay.
That is why we don't need an
Oscar,
ease. Yes.
The boy child is not doing very well. If you look at the number of boys who got A's, 28,000.
Yeah.
214.
E's, you mean?
E's. And ladies, female, 19?
No, I think that will be wrong, because the question is how many girls attended and how many boys attended.
Okay, this is the number of E's.
This is the number of E's.
Yes, the number of E's as female as per this one.
But
E's.
my position is
yes,
that if you get 28,000 boys getting E's, you go back to how many actually how many boys registered for the exams.
Okay.
If there were many, that means their E's will be many than the girls.
As per the gender, the number of A's, male 825.
Yeah. So
female 391.
Yes. So that means that the boys are doing better in A's.
Okay. But now, when it comes to E's, boys got higher.
And boys got higher in A's also.
In A's.
Yeah. So they're doing better in A's and doing better in E's.
Yes. Ladies, the female 391 A's, and now when it comes to E's, 19,960.
But you have to see the registered numbers. How many boys registered to do the exams as opposed to the girls?
All right.
Yeah. If there were many, that means there is. Gender, I think the boys are more.
I'll get it. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So if the boys are more, automatically at A's they will be more. At E's they will be more. They will be more in all categories, right? Because we count the number of people who registered based on gender.
Yeah.
Right.
But then again, if you look at the number of this system, the way it is, Eric, do you think the government now must go back to the drawing board? And now that we are entering the CBC system, the kind of grading system they are going to use, the number of students going to get into the TVET institutions, and the available jobs in the market, do you think the government is ready? Because TVET will also churn out quality products into the market. Because if you have somebody missing a university entry by 1 point, all right, and you're sending that person to a TVET, you would imagine what will happen after 3 or 4 years of TVET education. Looking ahead.
There are two institutions that are critical for us to understand how our economy, or rather to be able to portray how the future will look like. One of them is Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and we also have an institution, I think it's called National Employment Authority, something like that. Now, why those two institutions are important is because then we need to sit down and figure out what exactly will the job market look like in 10 years or 20 years to come. Remember, 20 years ago, the careers that were available are not necessarily the careers that are available today. And I'll give you an example. I have a cousin who was in JKUAT studying engineering. And they wanted to drop out of school because they wanted to be a hype man. And the parents could not understand who exactly a hype man is.
What is it?
Now,
I also don't know. Maybe I'm too old.
You see, that's exactly my point. So 10 years ago, there was no terminology maybe called a hype man.
Right.
But a hype man is the gentleman that, you know, when there is a crowd that is singing, there is a guy with a microphone hyping the crowd leading the song and the dance. And you know, it's a career in itself today as we speak, okay? Right. And therefore, we must sit down that's just as a way of example. We must sit down and ask ourselves, what potentially could the job market look like in 20 years? Now, that is the work of the National Employment Authority. Then they need to share that outlook with, say, you know, the education sector that we are having, and say, even under the CBC system, as we keep on redeveloping our curriculum, we need to redevelop our curriculum towards this potential end. So that way, there is proper planning, and we don't always have to keep on quoting unemployment numbers that never seem to go down. Because if you recall, when the government is giving us statistics, mostly the jobs they will quote jobs having been created in the informal sector. Now, the challenge with those statistics is that it becomes very difficult to identify which sectors, the informal sectors, were these, and whether that data is accurate or not accurate. Because if you go to the taxpayer system, you will get a person like Victor, you know, who actually pays tax as a result of the employer sending payee to KRA. But what about the farmer that deals with onions in say, a place like Nyahururu or potatoes? Then how do you capture that farmer in terms of your database? And what could that farmer potentially do in future to be able to be brought into the formal sector so that we can capture that data? How do we plan for this farmer so that 10 years down the line, we can actually account for him in terms of having a job? So I think there is need for stakeholder engagement, both in the education sector, because education cannot stand for its own sake or on its own. It needs to be augmented with other sectors. For instance, the Ministry of Trade. We need to find out how will trade look like in the foreseeable future. 20 years ago, we did not have the digital era where you could earn something, say, from TikTok or from YouTube. You know, we had, if I was a musician, I had to really struggle to come to KBC, and hope that they will play my music for me to get airplay. But now, I don't really have to do that. Yes, I appreciate what the mainstream does for me, but I could also earn from the digital footprints. I think there is need for concerted effort between the education sector so that it's not isolated. We are just churning out graduates, and then when we come out here, we have to do complete retraining for them. You know, I have to spend money as an employer to retrain you again for the next 1 or 2 years to be able to fit into the market. We need to retool.
That's now what we call look ahead, proper planning. Because in the next 20 years, you'd imagine all these students will get into the job market. Oscar, you have a lot of work to do.
But you see, if that means that we are not moving at the same
pace. Perhaps
pace.
you can just give the government benefit of the doubt that probably they are ready. Government is ready. They know what's happening.
I think there's that link between what I was talking about, between even the learner and the expectations. Sometimes I go to school and teach, and I discover that these guys are not even talking to me. You get me right? There's that complete dealing, because what are you talking about? We know these things, you know. But you see, we must be able to accept processes. That this thing starts from, I have to start from basics. Get me right? But some of these boys who come to school, they've already watched some of these things on YouTube.
We're ahead of you.
So we're ahead of you. So they don't see even the reason of coming. Same to what he's talking about, the mainstream media. Now the mainstream media is struggling with something like breaking news. Anytime you sell breaking news, but you can't sell breaking news that already been broken in Facebook.
Right. Let's take a break. Okay. You talked about the numbers. I have the numbers here. As per the statistics, male 450,000. 554. That is male students. 450, 554. Female 448, 899. That is 448,899. Male, that is 50.09%. Female 49.91%. That is plus or minus 1.
Plus or minus 1.
Plus or minus 1. In terms of gender parity, we can give it's a 50-50.
It's a 50-50.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. right, welcome back. Okay, so today is Education Matters. Leo tumeweka siasa kando. Someone is asking me, kwa leo tugie siasa? No, even education is politics, right?
Yeah, there is the politics of education, politics in everything.
Yeah,
politics of vaccination.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vaccines have a lot of politics, education has
This
a lot of
matters
politics.
to us.
Yeah.
We are all products of education. So let's talk about what's really... all of us are affected one way or another in terms of the KCSE results. So we just need to get you understand the figures and what you really need to understand. Now that we are getting the new system of education, the CBC, so what does it really portend to us? All right, so we talked about the figures. For the boy child, 50%. For the girl child is 49.91%. So gender parity, we can brag ourselves, we can brag that we've, in terms of education, the ministry, amepata hiyo kitu.
Yeah, if you get 50% for the girls, 50% for the male, you know, if you look at comparative, you do a comparative analysis of how these figures were like 20 years ago. You know, it was like almost 80% were boys and 20% were girls. But if we've achieved to get 50% for the boy child and 50% for the girl child, that is a very commendable thing. And most of the time when we do analysis about some of these things, we don't need just to look at the contemporary. We need to look at where have we come from with this particular thing. Where did we start with the KCSE? How many girls were we able to admit to attempt this exam in the last 20 years? And how many girls were able to do these exams in the contemporary? But most of the time when we do analysis of these things, we just want to look at exams that were sat in 2022, not comparing the milestones that we've moved from where we were and where we are. So this one should also inform the new system that we don't want to come here in the next 5 years and again get back to 20% girls, 50% boys. 50-50 is a very good thing. And when we do analysis, we should look at what are the achievements, what are the successes, and what are the... When you talk about the ease, these are the weaknesses. When you talk about 4,000 students registering and not appearing, this is bad. But again, when you look at gender parity, when you have 50% boys, 50% girls, then we are doing well on that particular aspect. So when we do analysis, we should really look at everything in general about some of these things.
Yes, and I agree with him, we've come from far. You know, sometimes it is easy to lose the bigger picture. You know, we started with the CPE system, where we had the 7-4-2-3 system, and then we moved into, you know, potentially to capture the job market. We moved into the 8-4-4 system in, I think, 1985. And now we've moved in the 2-6-3-3-3, which is the CBC system. And I think history is important. We need to learn from things that have worked in all those systems and improve. And then we need to also look at things that have not worked and things that have caused us a lot of headache, and also see how we can rectify the same. At the end of the day, I say, this country belongs to all of us. If we have an education system, it is our education system. And therefore, if we see areas where we feel and there is data and we can prove that those areas are not working for us, then there is need for concerted effort to change some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you look at the number of schools that are now getting into the national grid, you talked about that. The county, the extra county and all that, now we have with the national schools. Moving forward, the new grading system and the number of students being absorbed, do you really think it's going to change in the coming years now that we're getting to the new system? Eric?
Sorry, repeat that again.
The new system that we're going to the CBC and the new grading, the number of schools, they were upgraded.
Yes.
Some of them from county, sub-county, and we have got all national schools across the country. So you don't have to come to Nairobi to join some of these elite schools.
Yes.
In every county, the government made sure there is a national school in every county. So with the new education system that we have, do you really think they're going to maintain the same momentum or something? Yeah, maybe.
I think I can try to deal with it before Eric gets
kindly.
Yeah, I think, you know, what the new system is not an exam-oriented system. It is skill-based system. So the hullabaloo about the intention of the new system is to do away with all these discussion that we're having today, all this conversation we're having today, all the celebration that we're having today, we should do away with it because it is not an exam-oriented system. It is a skill-based system. That means that wherever you are, so long as things are done,
yes.
It's like the evolution. You don't need to come to the center to get resources.
Yes.
You should be able to wait for resources where you are to get it. That was the idea behind devolution. So even at education level, when we come up with a skill-based system, skill-based is that it should also be that whatever you are taught in term 1 gets probably tested because they're using this thing called the continuous assessment test. It gets tested immediately and you get the skill and you can use the skill to do other things as opposed to waiting to do study for 12 years to be tested for 2 hours. Because what we say, that these 2 hours, there could be something. Maybe you've lost a parent, maybe you are sick within these 2 hours, maybe you are a bit depressed. So, you know, judging somebody who has been studying for 12 years and judging them for an exam that they do for only 2 hours after studying for 12 years, and maybe they were so good. There are students who are so good in KCPE, they got A's, but then they end up getting E's in KCSE. That one should be investigated. What happened? Because if you could manage to get 400 at KCPE, 400 marks at KCPE, you should be an A student or a B student at KCSE. But now you find they fail. That means there must be something wrong in the system. And when we bring in a new system, this is meant to absorb so many. But again, it eases the pressure as early because if it is skill-based, at level 9, at level 10, at whatever level, you should be able to use your skill to do some other things elsewhere.
Do you think, Eric, with the new system, the education system is going to change in the coming future? Because people say that 844 had its strengths, weaknesses, loopholes here and there, but now we have the new one. What do you see? Skill-based nation, brain drain. The president said the other day that he's going to other nations, you know, Germany looking for, you know, Kenyans to work in those countries. Look at it this way, in the next 10, 15 years to come, how would this country look like with the new system?
The truth and reality is that, one, we are getting into new uncharted waters. These are territories we've not been in before. For instance, you've seen how it's called KCSE results have delayed. And you know the CS he said the results will be announced in most likely 2 weeks' time. This was the assessment done to grade 6 students who want to go into junior secondary. And he said the results will be released in 2 weeks. And part of what I got, he said that the ceremony will be low-key. And so we are getting into a territory that we are not familiar with. But what I foresee in the future is that this has the potential to increase student enrollment in our institutions. Because with time now, we will start accepting that, you know, TVETs are actually even a way of training our candidates. You know, for a long time, even when you had government officials speaking about TVET, TVET was looked upon as an institution where you went because you failed. Okay? But now with this system that is skill-based, then TVETs will play a key role in shaping the kind of skill set that we require for this country moving forward. And the beauty with TVETs is this. You know, unlike universities, you know, most universities have a certain way of doing things that doesn't get to really change over time. But the beauty with TVETs, if you're using these materials to train plumbers and those materials are no longer in the market forces you to, the principles are the same. Remember, the principles, you know, how water flows or how electricity moves, maybe DC to AC, the principle is the same. But the materials that you use to conduct, you know, from point A to point B could vary depending on market, you know, market variations. Now, the beauty with TVETs is that they are able to capture the same as the markets change, as opposed to how flexible a university would be that is actually awaiting capitation from government. And therefore, I feel this is a good system. The CBC system, as much as it has been criticized a lot, I believe it is a good system if we can harness and course correct as we move along, because remember, there is no perfect system. Even when 844 system came, it underwent a lot of scrutiny, it underwent a lot of criticism, but most of the people we know of have graduated from the 844 system.
Yeah.
Now we are going into a new CBC system, which in my opinion, I believe is a good system. Let us train our children, because I mean, why do I have to wait to... The first time I saw a computer and I trained in a computer was when I went to high school. Most of the people, they interacted with Windows and what did they call them? Packages, computer packages, after Form 4. But the reality is, right now as it is, we need to introduce the grade 1 student who is going to school to the computer.
Those guys are better than you.
Exactly, because now computers are the way of the future.
They are better than you.
But you see, for us, we had to wait all the way up to Form 4. If you were in a good school, then they had a lab.
Okay. Do you remember floppy disk?
That was just the other day. Yeah.
And you see, it's not long time ago.
Yeah.
You can see how technology can change within a very short span of time.
We would save
but again,
all our data documents in a floppy disk.
There's something I want to correct, some notion here. We must not compare university education and this TVET. Yes, no. What you need to know, who are TVET supposed to produce? That is the question. TVETs are meant to produce technicians. Universities are mostly meant to produce managers of those systems where technicians will work. Where you work, Victor, there is a technical director, there's a what, there's a guy who does the ICT, there's a what. So TVETs are meant to produce technicians. And universities don't produce technicians. University produces people who do, for example, a doctor who will only do diagnosis. And this diagnosis, they are clinical officers, they are nurses, they are people who will do this. The doctor is supposed to prescribe, listen to you and blah, 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 and tell you, okay, now go to the lab for those tests. Those people who work in the lab are technicians, lab technicians. Go for a particular scan. Those people who work in that scan place is a technician. So those TVETs are supposed to produce these technicians to help in our society. So we must not compare university and, you see, university, if you have a mechanical engineer, they don't touch the vehicle physically. They have systems that come up with solutions for the technicians to do their work. You get me right? So we cannot compare, because everything, you know what happened with this mushrooming of universities? We went producing too many managers at the expense of technicians.
Yes.
So you go back to your village and you want to do a house, yes, you have an architect, but getting a plumber becomes a problem.
Because everybody's a manager.
Because everybody's a manager.
Everybody went to university.
Everybody went to university.
Yes.
So that was the problem with the 844 system.
So you're trying to tell me that there is nothing wrong with the TVETs?
There's nothing wrong.
Absolutely
the problem
nothing
was
wrong, right?
The problem was
yes.
The problem was the 844 system. Because the 844 system created a situation where everybody has to go to the apex.
Does it really mean that there was a report by the education task force that was given the working team?
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
There was a proposal that they wanted to revert back
yes.
the system of going back to the NYS.
Yes.
As it used to happen in the 80s,
yes.
the 70s,
yes.
the 90s.
Yes. Yes.
After university,
yes.
all drivers who were driving their Kamba buses, the Kenya buses, all pass through NYS.
Yes. What happens is,
for the technical bit of education.
Even in the Constitution, the last time we were discussing with you about the Constitution here, I
yes.
told you the 28th Constitution is the independent Constitution.
Yes.
We reverted back. And even the CBC is still just reverting us back to the other system that worked perfectly.
Okay, so
what was it?
So there's nothing new.
There's nothing new under the planet.
There is nothing new under the sun.
Because at class 7, when you went to school, for example, or when I went to school, you know, I was taught by some people whom I saw in school, and they were called untrained teachers, UTs. You get me right? These are people who didn't go to do the P1 course. From Form 4, they were employed by, for example, the office board, and when they were employed, they were called untrained teachers.
Yes.
They were good teachers. But because of that system that we had there before,
yes.
allowed for to fizzle out. At class 7, you could go and work.
Right.
At Form 2, you could go and work. It was releasing people as we go. But the 844 system created a situation where you have to go to the apex. You have to get a university degree. Then come back. So we ended up with a lot of managers at the expense of what? Technicians. There were no untrained teachers at some level.
Eric agreed that there is no problem with TVETs.
You know, the challenge with TVETs has been the outlook. You know, as Oscar has explained, because of that apex system of 844, it was highly expected society-wise that everyone would end up at the university level. And therefore, if you did not manage to go to the university, you were perceived by the society as if you had failed.
Yeah.
And for a long time, government had really struggled to try and get students into the TVET system. And if you recall, there was a time there was a craze about bridging courses.
Yes.
Everyone wanted to do a bridging course
to go to university.
Yes.
And even people who didn't manage to get
even people who did not manage. And so we tried and forced people. That's why I was saying we had mushroomed lots of universities across the country. In almost every building in town, you know, you had a university coming up. But as Oscar has explained correctly, there is room for those who will go to the university, but the reality is there is inadequacy in terms of the skill set that we require as an economy.
Yes.
Now we need both cadres to work together, but if we had continued with the 844 system, because what happens is that when you tell a graduate to go and study plumbing, you know, at the TVET level, they feel as if you're demeaning them. But the reality is, it is easier when you are a plumber, having passed through TVET, to then continuously in the course of your career, upgrade to a degree. You know, it even becomes now more prestigious because you're growing in the ranks. As opposed to when you start at the university level as a manager, and then the market compels you
with no technical skills.
And then you know, you have to keep on relying in the uncle who is in Nairobi, sending him your CV so that he gets you a job, and the jobs are not forthcoming.
And again, Victor and Eric, for us to jumpstart our economy, we must just do one thing: get jobs for the unskilled people. These people who throng Uhuru Park when there's a public rally, those are the people whom we need to get jobs to. So long as we export, I don't know, these jobs to China. China, what it has done, the Chinese miracle, it was just simple. Chinese made sure its unskilled citizens were in job positions. That's why we need to go back and put more money in the Juakali sector. So long as we put more money in the Juakali sector, that we produce more and we get jobs to train those unskilled team. So long as that team, even the people who are the technicians, we get many of them, because it is even cheaper to train somebody in the TVET and get them to job market, as opposed to training individuals at the university level. Because you need, what do you need to train somebody at the university level? 500,000? For example, how many people can afford? And then what do you do with this individual who was supposed to be a manager? If you do something like ICT, degree in ICT, you know, you are not the guy who does the networking in an organization. You're not the guy who does the hardware work in this organization. You are an ICT manager.
Okay.
The question is, how many ICT managers do we need, for example, at KBC? There are not very many, 2 or 3 or 1. Give me right. But how many technicians do we need to deal with ICT systems at...
A very good example. But then now, moving forward, the new grading system is going to make sure that every student will have to pick where they find their strengths. Uganda has that system. When you go for Senior 5 and Senior 6, the A levels, now you start choosing as per your combination. Either you can do Divinity, English, Kiswahili, and English or something. You do based on your strengths. How do you think this is going to change the education system and the job market and the requirements? Because if I'm good at, for example, you know, humanities, look at it this way. How is it going to change the perception in the job market? Are we now going to, coming back to the question I asked, is the government ready now start to absorbing these people? Because if you, Eric, you are good at sciences and you're also good at sciences, then we have got millions of students who've done science-related courses, and then here we are, no job opportunities.
You know, first and foremost, we must not underestimate the role of perception in a society.
The role of perception?
Perception in itself.
Okay.
Why? Because, as we correctly said here, when people know that your child is a candidate, they have expectations on results. Now, as a parent, when your child gets an E, there is a perception out there regarding how your child has performed.
Yes.
So you realize the children who have gotten an A or a B+, their parents are very forthcoming with information. You don't need to ask them what your child got. They will volunteer information. For students with a D- and an E, you really have to convince the parent to tell you what the child has gotten. Now, how perception comes in then is that we have for a long time assumed that the people who go to TVETs, and I'm using the word perceived because it's not correct. We have perceived that the children or our students who go to TVETs are in some way failures. And that is why you see every CDA for a long time, you know, they just want to revive the local TVET that is around the area. It has one engine here, someone has donated, it has, you know, we never really took it seriously for some time. But the beauty about the CBC system is that then we are bringing up a new generation, okay, because that is very important, a new generation that goes through an education system and that has the capacity now to choose what exactly they want to be, and that in future as they upgrade, as they go up the academic ladder, then the issue of TVET is no longer looked down upon because this is a system you've grown up with from the word go. As opposed to when I come up with an 844 system where it is expected of me that for me to be deemed successful, I must go to a university. You see the change of mindset?
Yes.
Because the 844 teaches me, for me to be successful and to be considered an academic giant, I must find my way to the University of Nairobi or to Egerton University or whatever university for that matter, okay? But the reality is, as Oscar has said, how many ICT managers do you need in an institution? As opposed to the guy that actually does the actual work. And this is what has been happening. If you look at most of our unskilled economy, most of them learn through apprenticeship, okay? So you start at, say, masonry. You start at, we call it in Kikuyu kada ya moko, KYM. You start as the guy that assists the mason.
Boyfundi.
Boyfundi, exactly. You know, you start at that level. 5 years down the line, you have acquired the skill set to be able to bring, as a foreman, you know, to be able to bring up a building yourself. Now, the truth is 15 years down the line, that is a person who is really qualified, okay? Based on actually doing it on the job. But how do you accredit this person? Because there are some jobs, there are some companies that will require accreditation. So how do you accredit this gentleman who stepped out at, say, class 8 and now wants accreditation? They have the skill without the accreditation. So then how do we sort of formalize them into the sector?
I get you.
Because last time the Chinese were here and they were doing the SGR. They required welders. Now we have a lot of qualified welders in Kenya in terms of apprenticeship. But in terms of the paper, you know, it's a paper to show that I went to a certain TVET and I got grade 1 or I got grade 2. They don't have the paper.
I think even what happens, I think even what happens now with whatever the president is trying to talk to other countries so that we transfer labor. I don't know if you know how it is done. It is done this way. For example, in Australia, they're taking a lot of nurse aides from Kenya. How do they do? There is an exam. I think it is UNEXL, an exam that they do. You're just given an exam. You study it online for 2 weeks, then you do an exam. When you pass that exam, then you become a nurse aide. Because they know that whatever you've been doing, you're able to do this thing, but you just do an exam. So even people who are doing the mechanics at River Road, we should be able to just have one exam for them, which could be practical exams, because what they do is a practical thing. Then it is being evaluated. When you go to the KCSE thing, the physics, like for example, the sciences, most of the sciences, you are told that private schools or schools in the rural areas don't perform very well. Do you know the reason why? It is because they don't have laboratories. Because physics, chemistry, and all the sciences are practical.
We have to finish. We have to go.
Okay.
Let's all agree that moving forward, things are going to be okay. Oscar, 20 seconds.
Yeah. But things are going to be okay, but we are struggling. There is a bit of disorder on, but disorder sometimes in Kenya or in Africa, the informal means more than the formal.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So mostly the informal, there's something working in the informal.
What's the students? Either A, B's, D students?
I think, for example, I'll talk on behalf of the university, I will abandon graduation ceremonies. We don't need them. People just study and get to know what you're doing. This thing that you walk into town with gowns and what have you, and that regalia.
That's a subject for discussion.
And now kids are also graduating.
Kids are also graduating class 1.
So the most important thing is that regalia without even knowledge of anything.
There is no pride in having that. Yeah. Okay, all right. Eric,
well, mine is to say that we are in 2024, and I forecast that this will be a good year, both in terms of business and in terms of careers. It's always good to be hopeful, and it's always good to have the realization that things will work better for you. But of course, there will be challenges which you will deal with. And we look forward also to more interactions on this show together with our viewers.
Yes.
And having said that, I want to wish everyone a very beautiful week. And a very good day ahead.
And a good
we
day
didn't discuss politics.
Allow me to do one more thing before we finish. One more thing. As usually we do, we just cross over and see what's happening across the world. This is what's happened. French Prime Minister Bon resigns as Macron seeks to revamp a troubled government. That is now happening across our borders. It's not okay. French Prime Minister Bon resigns as Macron seeks to revamp a troubled government. French Prime Minister, that's Elizabeth Bon, has resigned. The French presidency said on Monday, that's as far as that is concerned. Okay, finally on the front page of the BBC, this is what it is. United Airlines finds loose balls in Boeing plane checks. This is what it is. Remember the Boeing that had part of it ripped off midair, the fuselage, right? So it's here, Boeing 737 MAX 9. 2 airlines find loose hardware in jet inspections. So there is a problem with the Boeing, but they have to rectify this. United Airlines said that installation issues relating to door plugs would be remedied before aircraft type.
It's sad to see bolts in need of additional tightening.
Imagine you are in that place.
This is what it is.
You see, this is Boeing 737 is the same one, the Ethiopian one.
The MAX, yes.
Exactly.
That
Something has to be done. All right. Thank you so much. Oscar, asante sana for joining us. Thank you for your valid company as well as Eric wa Muturi wa Dudi. Asante sana. Gentlemen, and viewers of viewer, asante for being part of Good Morning Kenya. Good morning. Let's take a break. Do you know who is coming up shortly? Regina Manyara. Atatuambia alikuwa wapi. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.